the Five Rings Podcast, Road to Tokyo on the Sports Podcasting Network. Your weekly fix leading up to the 2020 Olympic Games with Duane Rollins and Kevin Laramée. Follow us and listen to us live on Twitter at Five Rings Podcast and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network for more content.
Good day, good night, and welcome to the Five Rings Podcast, Road to Tokyo 2020. I guess that's a big question, Duane. Is the road going to end soon before we even get to Tokyo 2020?
The road to Tokyo 20-something, 2020, maybe never. I don't know. Wash your hands, folks. Wash your hands.
Wash your hands. Keep your distance. Stay home. Lysol, Purell in your everyday routine. I don't know. It's hard to be a sport fan, sport journalist right now without seeing COVID-19 being like literally part of your daily routine now. It is what it is. Even now, Tokyo 2020 seems so far away but so close. Let's talk about facts, Duane. Thousands of sporting events have been canceled around the world so far. A lot of them are going to continue to be canceled. Anything happening in Italy has been shut down until April 3rd. Every single sport that includes Serie A, championships, whatever it may be. Same are in other different places around Europe. Austria bans every single traveler from Italy coming into Austria. You're seeing across the board in Europe and Asia, thousands of events being canceled. And there's a big event coming this summer in Tokyo. Yeah, we might have maybe the first ever Olympics with no fan, or maybe the first ever canceled Olympics. Would it be the first ever? Maybe not, but at least a canceled Olympics nonetheless. That would not be good.
Yeah, well, no, they canceled them during the wars, but they would be the first canceled Olympic Games for any reason other than a global war, which is a pretty significant marker, right? Look, it is very difficult for me to talk about this rationally because I just so desperately want these games to go ahead. As anyone who has listened to us over the course of the 6 years of this show will understand, we are big Olympic fans. And yeah, I'm in particular a big Summer Olympic fan. It is my favorite sporting event, partly because of the scarcity, but this takes scarcity to a whole other level. And there's a lot of things to talk about here.
Yeah, let's start with the potential solutions. And right now, there's events being canceled left and right. But when we're talking about big events like this, we're talking about like seasons in major sports, pro leagues. By the way, pro leagues in North America have now, 4 pro leagues in North America. So Major League Soccer, NBA, NHL, and Major League Baseball have limited access to locker rooms to players and important personnel only. So that is something already in North America. But around the world, we're seeing all these things being canceled. And we're seeing some games up until yesterday or so being played without fan. So maybe that's where the thing will happen. But it's also a timeline thing. The idea of being a pandemic, and I alluded to it on our soccer show today, I'm going to use proper terminology so you can understand. This comes from insurance policies, usually to big events and big spend, like investment, like Tokyo 2020 is. For years and years, you plan and you invest money in preparing everything, right? Graphics, and there's millions and millions, billions of dollars involved in just the preparation of games that have already been spent on Tokyo 2020. And all these investments are kind of like insured. But these insured are usually include what we call communicable disease clause, where everything is going to be insured if there's a communicable disease, which is still classified as of now. But once it changes to pandemic, sometimes it nulls and voids policies, insurance policies, which then would expose Tokyo, the Japanese organizing committee, also sponsors, to millions and billions of dollars of losses, which would lead to probably a big recession in that part of the world. So there's a lot of moving pieces into a decision of canceling an Olympic outright. Canceling a 2-day event, canceling a marathon, canceling a qualifier is one thing. Canceling the whole damn show before taking other steps is another. And I think Duane, still on March 10th, that I believe we'll see Olympics without fans before we're seeing the no Olympics in 2020.
Yeah, if you were listening to just to speak to the insurance part of this first, if you were listening to our show this morning, I mentioned that I did some technical writing for the insurance industry a couple of years ago. During my lunch break, I reached out and sort of got some clarification on that. And, what we're talking about is something called business cancellation clauses or business cancellation insurance, which is a kind of usually more towards like you have a fire in your restaurant and you have to shut it down for a month type stuff, usually. This is a case where, exactly as you say, as long as they don't list it as a pandemic, which is considered an act of God under insurance terminology, which is strange to me that they still use God as the thing, but that's just aside. An act of God will make it null and void, so you would be out the money. So they are going to be put out. There's going to be a lot of pressure to be put on the World Health Organization to not call this a pandemic, even if it is, for that very reason, because anyone who loses their business because of it can't then take their insurance, right? Go ahead, Kevin.
I was going to say this is the case right now. Because technically, what is a pandemic? A pandemic is when more than 4 continents has been affected by a situation. And when you have 4 distinct continents with distinct hotbed or incubation pockets, incubation zones. And guess what? It is that. It is, in theory, a pandemic as we speak. It just hasn't been classified one for money reasons.
Yeah, and that pressure will continue to go on. The other pressure that will happen speaks more to your second point, and that is they will do everything under everything possible to not put the big C on it, which is cancel. And Dick Pound, Dick Pound used to, be the second most powerful person in the IOC, obviously the founder of WADA, very influential person. He's in the later part of his public career now. Dick Pound says a lot of stuff. We'll just leave it at that. And he proves to be right often, but he said that they would have to cancel it if this kept going. And he used the word cancel, not postpone, right? I don't think Dick Pound speaks for the IOC anymore, so I would put that on the shelf a little bit, although the sentiment of what he's saying is correct. I told you this morning that I am more like 80 to 85% sure there will be some change in what happens at the Olympics this year, whether that is simply stadiums closed or whether that means there is a movement of certain events. So you maybe don't have some events are held elsewhere, perhaps, and I don't know how you could do that quickly, or whether there is a postponement of the games till later on. I don't know which, but I do think now there's a likelihood that there's going to be something that happens unless there's a dramatic change in the forward momentum of this incident, of this disease, virus, in the next month.
Yeah, no, you're right, Duane. And we're seeing, though, like progress. If we're looking at different pockets, if we're looking at Wuhan, the worst is gone. It's on the mends, right? The amount of people affected and all that is getting better. If we're looking at Italy, it's getting worse and worse. So it's now the hotbed of the coronavirus. And I think there's something to that. There is still a strong possibility that by the time June comes, this is all blown over. And it's kind of like remember Ebola? Well, exactly. Maybe it'll be back like Ebola. Or like SARS, where it was something big and it was important, especially where you were in Toronto and other places. But it was also controlled and also an overplayed panic and fear because it does get ratings, right? So there's that aspect to it. So I don't think we're at a situation where a cancellation is needed. Postponement could be looked into. But even that, when you're looking at postponement, the feasibility of it, of something of this magnitude, a few months is not easy. It's not enough to be able to postpone it. So you either have it gone with no fans, or maybe a very limited amount of support staff, and even like so maybe you do a bare bones type of games and you just do the best in the situation you have with extreme precautions, basically pools of Purell surrounding every stadium and you're having automatic showers in and out, whatever the case may be. I'm exaggerating and trying to put some levity into this conversation. But there is, for me, the aspect of playing these games with no fans and focusing on the TV broadcast and making this a bit better and focusing on showing these games and getting the best out of this situation, which could be enhanced broadcasting aspect of the games in the United States, another big market in the world that don't have the streaming, the over-the-top aspect of the games like we do in Canada. So maybe there's something there. Maybe they're going to use this situation as if having more teleconference with athletes, open with the public, open chat rooms, conference calls, things to a nature of giving access to information, but actually restricting physical aspect to constrain the amount of interchanges of germs and microbes and diseases. So maybe that there's something in what I'm saying here.
Well, yeah, if you're playing behind a closed door, it's not ever completely closed. You would have IOC members there, you would have officials there, you would have probably a certain aspect of the media there.
Or even if it's still a conference by the media, which I was being proposed as president of the NASR, is something that could be useful down the road. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so there will be an element of some spectator there. But look, when it comes to postponement, I think they really have a couple choices. And the first one won't be politically correct, but I'll say it anyway. It would be to back it up a month and utilize the Paralympic time that is already set aside there to try and get the main games played there, and then you would have to then address the Paralympics in some way. Either you hold them concurrently, which would be difficult because the same venues, or you then maybe perhaps put that further in the future. It's a less logistical nightmare to move the Paralympics than it is to move the Olympics. So that's one possibility that's crossed my mind. The other is to play them next summer, which would be something the athletes will push against because they have tapered their training towards this. Obviously, this would, affect them greatly. It would affect everyone the same, though, so that might be the fairest way to do that. But they're going to go right up to whatever deadline they need to do before they're going to make a move on either of those kind of scenarios or any other that I haven't thought of.
No, for sure. And time is coming quickly, right? That's what you're saying. And it is going to be a now decision that they might regret in a few months. And I think that's what they want to make sure that doesn't happen. That they cancel the games, and by mid-May, end of May, we're like, oh, well, it was scary time, but it's over now and we're back in normal. Oh, wait, we canceled the Olympics already. What do we do? Can we get it back going again? So I think we're not going to get a resolve situation with the Olympics until like June 1st or so, and watch it being announced tomorrow that they cancel them. But no, I think it won't happen until maybe June.
Yeah, look, I mean, you start to see, if they end up canceling too, we're going to have a conversation about 2 years down the line at that point too, right? Because Beijing is if this is out of control that much, you never know. And Beijing, obviously, right in the heart of the Chinese situation, although the province of Bukit is not really that close to Beijing. Look, it's tough. It's tough for a lot of reasons, but I think that the other side of this that might come down is that we've been talking about this for a while. To take this a little off the community disease sort of aspect and go globally and what this might mean to the Olympic movement. We on this show have talked about there might need to be a change in how you're hosting these events anyway. And perhaps one of the things that might come out of this is a greater momentum towards the idea of a permanent host. The permanent host idea would be beneficial in this particular case because you would have venues that would be always ready to go. So therefore, you could then start to go with postponement situations that would go indefinitely. Obviously, you'd have to factor the athletes' training into it, but a community health situation like this would allow, to go month by month, basically, because the venues would be there, right? This is a city, and there's sort of a limited amount of time in which you can effectively get this host going. And if it doesn't hit that window, then the cost to that particular city is great. So maybe there'll be something that happens there. I don't know.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And we'll take a small break just to listen to the words of our sponsor in a second. But there's another aspect of this virus that we really need to address on the show, and the possibility of things really hitting the fan if they're not treated properly, if the games do come to play. March has arrived, and it's time to score big on the non-stop action with MyBookie. MyBookie is the best place for you to cash in on the insane buzzer beaters, huge upsets, and white-knuckle finishes. They offer live betting on every game, bracket challenges, national championship futures, and more. You can bet on almost anything, including the Democratic nomination, the presidential election, even the name of the next pope. MyBookie caters to all players, whether you research each matchup or you fill out your bracket based on the mascots. MyBookie has something for you. Join now and start winning big today. Sick and tired of getting the runaround when you ask for a payout? MyBookie pays fast when you win. With decades of experience, great customer service, and hassle-free transactions, why would you bet anywhere else? Visit mybookie.ag and use promo code SPN for a 50% deposit bonus. That's promo code SPN. Bet with the biggest, win with the best. Only at MyBookie. We're back on the Five Rings podcast, Duane, and there's one aspect of this that we have to think about, and we're going to use the worst case scenario and my, not conspiracy, but I guess Hollywood writer mindset to explain to you this. What if the games, what if no fans and the games go on, but a few athletes actually have the coronavirus and they perform and there's actually like transmission of that disease and a lot of people get infected, but it's the people that are all over the world. And then they go back home after the Olympics and they bring the coronavirus to places that it wasn't before. And then you truly create a worst case scenario world pandemic with this situation. So there is always worst case scenario, and this is probably the worst case scenario. And I guess that is the one thing we need to keep in mind is it's not just about, not locking the fans and no media, and we're just going to film everything. There's also possible repercussion post-Olympics if things are not done with the right precautions during the Olympics. What if it's almost eradicated, and because of the Olympics and because of a few infected people that traveled around the world now, it is reactivated? There's always a risk with this type of disease, infection, virus, and a gathering of people from around the world.
Yeah, the danger from a community health standpoint, and caveat to this, neither one of us are doctors, but from absorbing the amount of media I have on this, the danger is that the dormant period of the virus, dormant meaning that the time when you have it but you aren't showing symptoms, and that is when you are most likely to pass it on to someone, is longer than you'd like. So you could have people at the Olympics that would be not showing any signs of having this disorder, having this virus disorder, and that would then be passing it on without knowing, right? So that's a problem. For that also, folks, real quickly on the side of that, if you see someone sneezing on the subway, they're showing symptoms. That means that they're less likely to pass it on to you than they would be without it. So don't be an idiot / racist with that stuff. Anyway, that goes without saying.
Yeah, and as of today, as watching, like you have a lot of content of the coronavirus, and I'm really sick of it right now, but I guess that's a really not good pun. But that's the thing. There's about 8 days of your infectious period where you can infect people. So there's a couple of days of incubating that virus inside of you without showing symptoms, and a couple of days of actual showing of symptoms that you are still infectious, but then you're okay. And that's the danger, is if that period of you being infectious is bigger than the time it takes you to leave a place and to get to another place and show symptoms, then you can travel and contaminate a lot of other people before you get to your final destination without showing signs. And it'll be hard to track at that point all the people you've come in contact with, and it is across continents, and that becomes a real hard issue, which has been the case and has been seen over the last couple of weeks. So there is also not only a precaution scenario, we don't want the people coming into the Olympics being infected by this virus and being in trouble. There's also, we don't want to spread this virus to places that it hasn't come in contact with, and we don't want to make this situation worse. And that is always a possibility when it comes to a situation like this. And the timing of it, it's like the perfect storm. It's like it was all designed. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, for sure. And look, the other danger that could come of this, at the risk of giving Donald Trump any credit for anything, he did mention something that did have an element of truth in one of his bizarre statements leading into this. I'm not being political about this. He is not very on point with this. But at any rate, there is a chance that this virus will start to slow down when the hotter weather arrives. That doesn't mean it's gone away, though. And that's the other danger, is that we wait a month or so, the globe starts to heat up overall, and we've seen less cases, and we go, yeah, we got it under control. And then you go, and all these people are around, and the virus is still poking around, not as strong, but it's still poking around, and then it flares back up in the fall. So we've got to be careful about this. And we, as much as it would suck to play the Olympics in front of empty crowds, truth be told, it's mostly a TV event for 99% of the world anyway.
Yeah.
So
you're right.
And look, who would miss out would be the friends and families of the athletes. And look, I don't want to see this happen. There would be something, to see a world record in the pool and have no cheering would be sad. There's no doubt. Sports without fans lose something. But at the same time, you've got to recognize that these athletes, this is the pinnacle of their existence, and we should, not of their existence, but of their athletic existence, we should do everything we can to make sure that they still have the opportunity to achieve the goal that they have worked their entire life to achieve. The fact that you and I maybe don't see it in the same way as we would normally is a very small part of that. I think what we need to do, this is, again, obviously Zika was overblown in hindsight, but we had the same conversation in Brazil. This is the issue when you have a whole bunch of people coming from around the world into one place, is what does that mean for stuff like this? And I don't know what ways there are around that other than educating people and doing the right amount of precautions in the venues. And maybe, a permanent site or something like that does make sense when you start to think about it. The Olympics, one of the themes of the show over the 6 years we've done it, other than the sports stuff, has been there's need to be a change in thinking to make sure that this thing that we love can continue to exist in a way that is sustainable moving forward. And this is just another challenge to that as we move into a time where there's a lot of challenges out there. We are in a disruptive period of world history, I believe, and this is maybe another example of that.
Yeah, the robots are going to take over soon anyways, right? So we're just a few years away from the Olympics being contested by iRobots and stuff.
Perhaps. Well, you say Bolt, I'd like to see an X-ray.
Mechanical doping. Usain Bolt is actually Boston Dynamics. It's a fake. It's fake news.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Maybe. If he was, he'd still be running though. So there you go.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the secret. You don't know. That Jamaican track team, they're all robots. Perhaps they're so good. But we hope we get to see that again because look.
Maybe that's a solution. Make a virtual Olympics. Maybe everyone's just gonna play the video game and you can watch that, and there's no danger because everyone's gonna be at home.
We don't have. That's a lighter topic. I really call me an old man if you want, but I really don't want to see a day when I hear winner of the gold medal representing Lithuania, Viper 69. And some kid walks up there with a Doritos thing. Come on,
use your real name. Come on. You can't call it. No. You want the medal, use your real name, buddy.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, on that level of levity.
So esports is not your idea of an Olympic worth sporting event?
I appreciate that there's a skill involved in it. I really do. But I think that the benefit of sports to society as a whole is about how it provides a healthier and more physically literate society, and I'm not convinced video games provide that same benefit.
Okay. How about that?
I'm also not convinced, Kevin, that I won't in my lifetime see esports in the Olympic movement, which is terrifying to me, but whatever.
I have something for you.
Because I really will be an old man when that happens.
You know what the drone racing league is?
Yep.
Yeah? Maybe it's something that is like that. It's like a hybrid of the two. Like it's kind of like video gaming because the way you control it, the way you see it is like a video game perspective. But it actually happens in real life. Maybe there's something to be okay. The Counter-Strike will be in real life, like a map in real life with robots shooting at each other, and what you do is actually you control. So it'll be like a drone-controlled esports type of thing, but in real life. Maybe that will be in the Olympics before true esports.
Motorsports first. I would accept motorsports in there before I would accept esports, but I'm really ultimately not the one that's making this call. Now am I?
No, and that will never happen. But I know that's one of the solutions for the coronavirus. Guess what? I don't think robots can get the coronavirus. I'm pretty sure they cannot. I'm pretty sure robots are immune. So maybe you just have robots play the Olympics for you in 2020.
This is joking, folks. We're joking.
Well, obviously. Like, geez. Maybe.
Got to be careful these days. You can never be too literal.
The high jump will be a really good one. You just put a couple rockets in there. Hey, 200,000 kilometers high jump by the Saturn V rocket in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics.
Yeah, exactly.
They're robots. On that note, Duane and I will go back to our Purell-laden cave that we're gonna stay in there. We're gonna make sure we don't catch anything because we need to speak on the microphone for a living. We're gonna continue to look at what happens with the coronavirus, and you know what? Hopefully, everything will be okay. I'm still optimistic, even though there's a lot of signs pointing to an Olympic Games without fans. At least I just hope that it happens. I'm still optimistic that we'll see medals being won come summer.
Absolutely.
And until next time, as always, you can follow Duane on social media at 24th Minute, myself at Kev Laramée, and this show at Five Rings Podcast. We'll be back next week with a lot more on probably the coronavirus again, but also hopefully back to our road to Tokyo. Hopefully. But until then, own your hypothetical podium, folks, and wash your hands.